This week on In Alignment, we're joined by Margaret Trainor, founder of Atmo Home. From the hidden chemistry behind candles to the truth about natural versus synthetic fragrances, Margaret breaks down how our home environment impacts our health more than we realize. We talk about transparency, regulation, and simple shifts that you can make to reduce toxic load without sacrificing the rituals you love. We also dive into what it means to live well and feel well. Margaret shares her refreshing and inspiring take on wellness and what a life well lived really looks like and feels like. This is such an informative, inspiring, and fun conversation. We can't wait for you to listen. Welcome to In Alignment. I'm Annie.
And I'm Marissa. You were meant to find this today, and we're so glad you're here.
Welcome to In Alignment, Margaret. We're so excited to have you here today. We'd love if we could kick it off with just a quick intro on yourself.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. So I'm the founder of Atmo Home. We are a modern home care brand, and we create really like essential products to support modern consumers in better caring for their space and self. I'm originally from California, currently living in New York, and really excited about what we're building out here.
Tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a founder. What inspired you to start Atmo Home?
I was definitely that like annoying employee who like always wanted to be in charge of things. I'm such a middle child. So like apologies to everyone that ever hired me. I think when it comes to being a founder, I definitely wanted to have that like agency over my own life and that creative freedom. So I think that's sort of been baked into me for a long time. But the founding story of Atmo, I mean, Atmo never had like one aha moment. It really was kind of an evolution with my personal growth. But I really had this moment where I realized we'd lost touch with how to care for the things that we have in our lives. And that really inspired me to kind of rethink the products that we use and also these like routines and rituals and everyday things that we do. And felt like there had been a lot of innovation in skincare or nutrition, but it hadn't really been extended into the home. And especially for our generation, like in a post-COVID world, we actually spend over 90% of our lives inside, which is kind of a terrifying statistic. So caring for the space that you're in and making sure that it's a healthy, sustainable, safe environment is actually so key to living a healthier life. So that definitely was my big inspiration. And one other thing I would tell you is when I moved out of my Berlin apartment, I had to have the entire place repainted and all of the appliances cleaned because everything was covered in a layer of soot and smoke from the candles that I've been burning for 6 years. Like I have receipts, I have photos, and it really made me realize like until they pointed that out, I truly hadn't noticed. And once I noticed, I was like, oh my God, like, am I okay? Like, and that really inspired me to start creating a cleaner candle because what I've been burning were like nice quality, expensive ones. And you just realize that a lot of these formulas are actually just not well made.
Tell us a little bit more about that because I actually just moved out of my apartment at the end of February. And, for the security deposit, they go through and they take photos. And I did an immaculate job taking care of my apartment. I lived there for 4 years. But the one thing that they called me on was my whole apartment was covered in that dark soot because I burned candles so much over the course of 4 years. And I had a similar reaction where I was like, am I okay? So like, I
Yeah.
guess, are we okay? What is causing that? And yeah, like
I'm
why,
like,
yeah, what is it about candles that's so bad, I guess, that we need a
yeah.
cleaner one?
I mean, I'm like, we are, but we're also not. So what I would say is like when it comes to like your home and the products that you're using, typically the amounts that your body is interacting with on a daily basis is so small that like generally you're going to be fine. So I don't want people like absolutely panicking, thinking that they're going to die. But at the same time, one of the issues with candles is that candles are really like a little chemistry experiment. So what makes a candle clean has less to do with the raw materials, even though that is important, and more to do with the combustion of the actual candle. So the way that candles work is basically the wax is mixed with the fragrance. This is pulled up by the wick, incinerated by the flame, and then dispersed. So you have a lot of factors interacting. So for example, like if the wax blend and the fragrance carrier oil aren't compatible and the wick sizing isn't compatible, you're not going to get like an even complete combustion, kind of similar to like how a car engine works, where it's like emitting exhaust. So what we really focus on Atmo is trying to create perfect combustion every time, which involves quite a bit of R&D. So a lot of candles on the market today, they'll kind of go to a producer. They'll say, this is the wax you use. These are the wicks. Here's some fragrances to choose from. They'll do some testing, but they don't really go that extra mile to really create like that. They don't go the extra mile to really try to optimize for combustion every time. So when it comes to you and what you're burning in your home, because I mean, I'm sure it was pretty similar for us. Like I was putting some nice candles in there, and it wasn't like I had like 50 lit, it was like a couple. But the best thing that you can do is to buy like a well-made candle and then burn it safely. So like trim the wick, keep the window open. Um, and as long as you're doing that, you're going to be able to have a safe experience.
Why trim the wick?
Oh my God, this is like the most important thing you can do when burning a candle. We're also coming out with accessories soon to help people really do that, because I never really did it until I learned how important it is. So typically, like wicks with candles are actually called like self-trimming wicks, so that they'll like the wick never gets like crazy long, it'll kind of like trim itself. But to optimally burn a candle, you actually want to keep the wick to 1/4 of an inch high, which is really not that high. And by trimming it, what you do is you basically get rid of like any of those, when it gets like those little puffy clouds at the base of the wick, or if you have any like uneven threads and stuff, by keeping it trimmed, you're basically keeping like a clean, short flame. And what you want with a candle is like a clean, hot flame that burns completely. So similar to like making a fire, like if you have like a dry log, you know what I mean? You're just going to get a better burn experience. Does that make sense?
Totally. I
Yeah.
mean, I've never trimmed a wick. Similar to you though, I've never trimmed a wick. Now I'm going to, but I also have
This is
stopped
your new
buying.
era.
Yeah, this is a new era. But I also, similarly thought that I was okay because I was buying expensive candles, and it was like a form of self-care for myself. It was something I would
Hmm.
like treat myself to make my home feel really nice. I would light it before. Sometimes I would do yoga or like take a bath. And, it's disappointing, I guess, to think about the fact that we can spend so much money on something and it's this nice thing. And you would think that I guess it's maybe being regulated, or that companies are ensuring that the product is clean, but we know that is not how it works. What is like how regulated are fragrances, and maybe compared to other home goods?
Yeah. So we originally started the business in Europe, and everything we formulated was formulated to European regulation. When I moved the business to the US, I was like, okay, what's the regulation? What do I need to file with whom? Because in Europe, you have to file like every safety data sheet. Like there's a very strict process. And in America, it was like, these are the labeling requirements, and get insurance. Try not to get sued. And I was like, I was like, so okay. There is a National Candle Association here, and we actually work with somebody that helped write the regulation for candle safety in the US. He's a certified toxicologist who reviews all of our formulations. So there's definitely a lot of people in the US specifically that are actually working on candle safety. But when it trickles down to the brands and the products being produced, there's kind of two things I want to say to your question. The first is that like I firmly believe that we should be able to lead healthy, sustainable lives without giving up everything that we love. Like point blank, period. We should not have to give up the things that we love. We just need better products. The second part of that is that when it comes to the brand side, this is really hard as a consumer, because at the end of the day, you're really just deciding who you're going to trust and who also you're going to trust with your investment. There's some brands that will go the extra mile and some brands that won't. And it's just really hard to know who will and who won't. I think you can also trust yourself. Like if you buy a candle and you take it home, things that you can look for is if the flame is like really trembling a lot, if it's emitting that soot and smoke, you can try trimming the wick, opening a window. If it's still not working, that's kind of a clue that maybe it's not a very well formulated candle. Also, if it's like tunneling, where it just, instead of burning an even wax pool, it's kind of going straight down. That's another key, that the wick probably wasn't properly sized for that. But yeah, there is sort of this fallacy that a beeswax candle with essential oils is cleaner and safer for your health. That's absolutely not true. You could have a beeswax candle with essential oils that, if it's not formulated correctly, it's going to be emitting benzene and toluene just like a paraffin-based candle. So at the end of the day, it really comes back to like good combustion, but it's hard. It's hard out. Listen, it's hard out there as a consumer. It's hard. I would say like on the day to day, the best things that you could do to protect yourself are, if you want to have a candle, just buy a quality candle, keep a window open, trim that wick. Those are your three things.
I want to ask you about this because I didn't know this prior to this conversation, but it sounds like there's 2 buckets that make a candle safe. There's the formulation and it being non-toxic or cleaner, and then it's the way that the candle was made. Is that correct? Like, there's 2 things you wanna look out for?
You know, I guess the thing would be like, there's a way that we look at it from a brand side, and there's a way that you should look at it from a consumer side. From a consumer side, the best thing that you can do, I'm sorry to say, is like buy a more expensive candle. A lot of times, the ones that you're getting at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, this is also, by the way, one of the reasons why we created a refill model because we were like, how do we give people a luxury quality candle at a more affordable price point? But a lot of times, these cheaper candles, the waxes are cut with plasticizers that change the melting temperature of it. And so you just don't have a lot of control over like what's in that formulation. I always say like cheap candles are cheap for a reason. If you're buying a cheeseburger at McDonald's versus like a fancy restaurant, you kind of got to know like that's what you're getting and that's what you're getting. So just know what kind of experience you want to have. When it comes to the brand side, what actually really surprised me was that, when it comes to making a candle, there's sort of this established way of doing things. And there's also this established way of looking at toxicology. So traditionally, toxicology has been like the dose makes the poison. So a lot of chemical companies, for example, would like dilute chemicals and it'd be like, see, now you're fine. And what we've seen is that toxicology has sort of shifted to talking about low dose exposure over time and sort of cumulative toxic load, similar to the conversation that's happening around alcohol. So yeah, it's fine to have a glass of wine, but like if you have that every single day, what is that actually doing to your body? So that's really the approach that we're taking at Atmo, is really just thinking about our customer, the routines, the rituals, the total environment that they're in, and then trying to really think about that holistically and also pushing the sort of established boundaries when it comes to formulation on trying to find ways that we can do it better. So for us, that means like we're looking into alternative raw materials and trying to see like, is there something we maybe want to create in this space? Like what's available to us, not really following just like the established industry logic. We also focused on sustainable design. So our candles are refillable. We try to use as much sustainable packaging materials as we can. There's obviously limitations with that, because when you're working with vendors like a 3PL, et cetera, like there's certain materials that they can't work with. So I think it's about like consistency over time. So we just try to think about like taking small, consistent steps towards making a product better and better over time. So I know that that's maybe not the clearest answer, because you're like, as a consumer, how do you choose? I would just say if you're looking at buying a product, look for a company that has transparency around their standards. It's very hard to give transparency around fragrance, and we can like dig into that. But you want to find a company that has some kind of stance on what they do and what they don't do. And I would also say, as a consumer, don't be afraid to like DM them and be like, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about this if there's anything that feels unclear to you?
I think we think typically more about fragrance than we do, or at least for me, I had never thought about the way a candle combusts, right?
Really? I'm shocked. Don't worry. Neither had I till I figured out how to make one.
Yeah, it's like you think you're burning something and you don't see like the smoke or whatever, so you don't think about it. But we do, I think we've started as a society maybe thinking a tiny bit more about fragrances, because we have fragrances, we have perfumes, we have candles, sometimes people have air fresheners. Like there's so many different ways that people are putting fragrances in their homes. How important is the fragrance piece itself? And then yeah, like I guess what should we look for there? Because I think
Mhm.
I've heard like synthetic fragrances maybe are not so good. I don't know why, but yeah, what's your kind of thinking around all of that stuff?
Yeah, I'm so happy you asked this, because justice for synthetics, this is like my favorite thing to debunk. So a lot of the concern around fragrance has to do with a lack of transparency. And that's kind of the starting point, is people just don't know what is in these fragrances, which makes total sense. The problem is that when you create a fragrance, you're creating it with a fragrance house. For example, we would come to them and say, hey, these are our criteria. We, for example, sell our products in Credo Beauty, and it needs to be formulated to Credo Clean standards. This is what we want. This is what we don't want. By the way, just like side note tangent, anything you buy at Credo Beauty has been extensively vetted by their team, and they have one of the most robust clean standards in the industry. So if you don't want to bother with reading a label, just shop there. I can tell you, you're going to be totally fine. They're
I buy
amazing.
literally everything from Credo.
They're amazing. And they do so Yeah, they do so much internally to constantly like invest in the process of building out these clean standards as we get more data and more information. So they're like really living and breathing that mission. So they're amazing. And I love that you love them. We love them too. Okay, so back to the fragrances. So when you work with a fragrance house on producing it, it's considered a trade secret. So you have to sign an NDA to see the full ingredient list and the concentrations as a brand. And you cannot publicly disclose that on your website. Now, for us, we're working with them to say, like, come on, guys, like, what can we tell people something, anything? So I understand that for consumers, that's really scary. When it comes to the debate between naturals and synthetics, I want to just talk about the process of creating natural essential oils. Synthetics are made in a lab. The molecular structure of these fragrances should be no different than what you experience in nature. When you have a natural fragrance, think about how much feedstock you need to actually make that. Let's take roses, for example. If you want to make a rose essential oil, you need hundreds of thousands of roses to actually produce a very small quantity of oil, and you need to extract that oil. So some might cold press it, but for a lot of essential oils, they actually use like chlorinated solvents to extract these materials. And a lot of times that can actually leave a byproduct behind. And because they're naturals, they tend to be a little bit more volatile. And so when you put them into a formulation, that volatility can actually change. Like it can change the fragrance over time, it can change the overall formulation. So they're not necessarily cleaner. And if you want to talk about something that has an impact on your endocrine system, citrus essential oils can be endocrine disruptors. Now, the quantity you would have to use is significant to really disrupt your endocrine system. But I think it's an important thing to note to just understand that it's not like naturals are great and synthetics are bad. There's also a lot of concern around VOCs or volatile organic compounds where people are like, oh, I don't want any VOCs. And it's like, okay, well, I hope you don't plan on walking by a rose bush anytime because if you smell that rose, that's a VOC. A volatile organic compound is something that you smell. And I've got to say, like, I only learned this stuff because we have a partnership with a group of chemists in Germany who held my hand and were like, you're like, this is all just bullshit, basically. So there's a lot of misinformation in the industry. When it comes to choosing a better for you fragrance, in a candle in general, fragrance is going to be non toxic because you're not eating it and you're not rubbing it on your body. So that's like point number one. That said, coming back to what we talked about before about thinking about low dose exposure over time and wanting to push the boundaries on what's better, we do that regardless. But when it comes to choosing a fragrance for you, obviously you want to avoid phthalates, nitro musks. There are certain things within the fragrance space that you do want to avoid. There is a lot of really exciting innovation happening, though. There's a company that we're working on a partnership with that's using machine learning to create better fragrance molecules that more perfectly mimic what we experience in nature. And by doing so, they can actually reduce the number of ingredients in a fragrance. So every fragrance is going to be cut with some kind of carrier. So looking at ways that you can either reduce that or remove that. So there's a lot of interesting things happening right now. As a consumer, if you want to choose a safer fragrance for you, the best advice I can give you is to just buy it from a reputable source so that you don't feel like you have to become an expert overnight. If you do want to become an expert overnight, start a TikTok and share that knowledge with the world because I know this is a really confusing space for a lot of people.
So I have heard that fragrances, like the number one thing to avoid is fragrance, whether that's in a perfume, in a candle, in a skincare product. Is that not really true?
I think it would be such a tragic world to remove fragrance from our lives. You know, fragrance has a very powerful effect on it ties into the limbic system. It can make you remember something. It can make you feel something. It can make you feel calm. It can remind you of, your mom or like a memory. I have a Paul Mitchell shampoo. When I smell it, throws me back to fifth grade. I got it in fifth grade. It's like tied to this time in your life. Fragrance is also essential to our ability to taste food. Like it would be so tragic if we removed that from our lives. That said, there's applications that maybe don't make the most sense. Like if you're using a skincare product and it has a lot of fragrance additives in it, say you have a fragrance product with a bunch of essential oils. That's super harsh on your skin. I don't want that on my skin. that's like a customer experience benefit, but it's not necessarily good for your skin or even for your body, you know? So, I mean, fragrance has been used for thousands of years. It would be tragic for us to cut it out of our lives. I think what we need to do, and this is a responsibility, by the way, that I feel like falls on the brand side and shouldn't fall on the consumer, is we know more now. There's more data now. We have a responsibility to formulate better products and to provide the customer with the information that they need to make a more informed choice. That's how I think about it.
Totally. I had the same I've heard the same as Annie, and I've had a similar reaction to you where, like, I put perfume on this morning, I'm not seeing anyone, it literally makes me feel more
Yeah.
confident when I talk and better for my day. I can't fathom this might sound dramatic, but yeah, I can't fathom going through the rest of my life without perfume or candles or, certain, like, fragrances, but I would never, to your point, use a fragranced skincare product because it's gonna irritate me or, sometimes in other countries, it can be really hard to find, like, toilet paper that isn't fragranced, which I find, a little scary. So I think, yeah, places to reduce fragrance make sense, but I guess we don't need to worry so much about this notion of, like, for example, if we're gonna wear a perfume, we can just wear a perfume. We don't need to worry too much if it's synthetic or natural, like, just buying it from a reputable source is the most important thing for the consumer.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it really comes down to to good chemistry, you know, and working with chemists has really debunked a lot of things that I thought about this industry. I think like it's hard as a brand to try to communicate all that you're doing behind the scenes on like the front end of a website when you have somebody's attention for 3 seconds. It's something we're certainly working on doing a better job at. I think there's a really like lack of understanding of the basic chemistry of our bodies and the things that we're doing and using every day. That's really a mission that I'm on to try to debunk that for people so that they have a better understanding and to do it from the perspective of someone who's like, "Hey, I'm not a chemist, but they have explained it to me, so maybe I can explain it to you in a way that makes more sense." But yeah, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, the worst thing that you can do for your body is stress. And so if you're stressing about every little thing that you're interacting with, like that's just not a healthy way to live, period. At the same time, I think that when I think about the products that I grew up with, you have things like chlorine and tampons. Like, what? No, that's why was that ever an established practice? Like, I think there's a lot of really good innovation happening right now as people look more deeply at established practices and think about how do we do that better. So, in my opinion, it's never been a better time to be a consumer. But when it comes to choosing better, I think it really just comes down to like how much time and effort you really have to put into this. If you don't have a lot, just shop at a reputable source. Like, if you don't feel like you know a brand well enough to make a decision, look at where they're sold. That'll tell you a lot. And just look for any transparency and be unafraid to ask questions if it's concerning. I think that's the best thing you can do as a consumer right now.
Quick break before we get back into the episode. If you've ever felt like you've done everything you're supposed to do and you still feel stuck, this is for you. Maybe you've tried the supplements, the protocols, the therapy, the books, the podcasts, the self-development work. And while some of it's helped, something still feels unresolved. Because there's a layer of your health and your life that those things often don't touch. The same pattern shaping your stress, your relationships, your career, your symptoms, and the way you move through the world are way more connected than you think. That's why we built Shift. The Shift method helps women identify the patterns keeping them stuck, work with their nervous system to create lasting change from the inside out. Our one-on-one coaching practice is now open. If you're ready to stop managing symptoms and start getting to the root of what's keeping you stuck, you can book a free consultation through the link in our show notes. And this fall, we're launching the Shift membership, a place to practice the Shift method alongside a community of women doing the exact same work. Together, we'll explore the areas of your life where women get stuck the most often: relationships, career, health, anxiety, purpose, rest, and more, and build the tools to create real, lasting transformation. Join the waitlist today to lock in founder member pricing for life. Now back to the episode.
What else can people kind of pay attention to if they want, like, without going totally overboard and panicking about every single chemical in the home? What are some of the smaller ways that we can support our general environmental health, especially with like the products that we buy?
Yeah. First of all, I really want people to stop thinking about chemicals as bad. You are chemicals. We are chemicals. Chemistry is everything. It's all around us. Chemistry is amazing. Like, we need to embrace chemicals. When it comes to creating a home, honestly, every person is unique. This is one of the reasons why we brought customization into our line. We actually pour our candles in softer, strong fragrance concentrations. We can talk more about that, but everybody is unique. You are unique. Your home is unique. You have to come up with your own way of doing things. Like, there are people that I know that are extremely sensitive to mold that can walk into a space and be like, this doesn't feel good to me because they can interact with the spores around them. I'm like, really? Something's wrong, you know? So the number one thing I would say is listening to your body. Like your body, those like small feelings that you feel, if you feel uncomfortable, if you feel safe, like that's actually giving you more information than I think you realize. But the other things are just like looking at your home as a wellness environment and thinking about how it supports you. So things that I'm doing right now is being really mindful about the textiles that I choose. Looking at like making sure all of my underwear is organic cotton and spandex and not having like synthetics in my underwear anymore. Choosing like good bedding, organic cotton or silk, just like pure materials. Looking at your water quality and potentially filtering your water if you feel like you need to. Making sure that you're getting good ventilation in your space, keeping the windows open, but also checking the air quality index. So, like if you're in a big city like New York, just check the air quality index before you throw everything open. You could get a HEPA filter. I think there's a lot of just like small things that you can do to just give yourself every opportunity to feel better. So it's things like also choosing like non-toxic paint if you're going to paint your apartment. So I think it's just like simple, consistent lifestyle choices. And then you got to give yourself some grace. Like you're not going to get everything perfect. And we need to shift away from this belief system that like everything around us is trying to kill us. I've really noticed this difference between Europe and America because we have so little regulation here and because we have no trust in politics or the healthcare system to care for us if we do become sick. We are hyper vigilant when it comes to our own health and well-being, which is amazing on one side because it has created this incredible wellness culture. Like we really push the boundaries of what's possible, but you don't want to be operating from this constant place of control and fear. That's not healthy for you. I would also say that the chemists that we work with, one of them gave this talk and this inspired me so much. And he was talking about how every chemical in existence is around you at all times. Even atomic bomb particles are around you, but they're so small that our systems of measurement wouldn't be sophisticated enough to pick them up. But we can't say that they're not there, you know? So I think it's just this, we are surrounded by so many things all the time. If we were trying to control every single variable, the only thing we would do would be to drive ourselves into an early grave by being that stressed. So the best thing that you can do is listen to your body and yourself, live your life, and try to make healthier choices when and where you can. I'm going to be really honest with you. I have Botox in my face and I have builder gel on my nails. You know, there are certain, and I'm okay with that. And I have wine sometimes and I'm choosing like healthier textiles and going to the gym and the sauna.
I think in modern wellness culture, that's I mean, even I personally struggle with that. Like sometimes I do get anxious, like that black and white mindset creeps in
Mhm.
where it's like, if I'm not fully non-toxic, am I really going to be healthy? Or can I be like a wellness person if I have a Levain cookie sometimes or, use a hand lotion that I just love that definitely isn't clean? I think that social media has done this a lot to us, but we feel like we need to be bucketed. Social media kind of pushes people to these categories of like you have to associate and that just healthy middle ground and balance, which is arguably the most healthy out of any of these extremes, can be uncomfortable to live in.
Yeah. I mean, I really think like, what is perfection anyways? Like, what is our purpose here? Our purpose is to be the most authentic version of ourselves. And that's why I'm so bullish on personalization is like what works for me might not work for you. And what I want to create with Atmo is, sort of an ecosystem of information and products that like support you in creating what feels good for you. And I think that that's really important is like, we have this like zero sum game that if we're going to care about anything, we have to care about everything. If we're going to do one thing, we have to go to the extreme. If you want to go to the extreme, amazing. But like, it doesn't mean that anything else is not valuable. And I think it's because our brains want to bucket things like it makes us feel like, think about a relationship. It's like your brain wants to be like, it was bad or it was great. You know, the truth is that it's a gray area where you're like, well, parts of that were not good, but it brought up parts of me that were not good. And now I have to sort through the like messy gray area that is that experience, because you could be in a relationship with someone where it would be super toxic for you and they could go be with someone else and it's like super healthy because they just work well, you know? So I really want us as a society to kind of get away from this like need to kind of put ourselves and others into these like straitjackets and to create a life that feels good for ourselves as individuals. And like whatever works for you might not work for me. It's great to share that and inspire each other, but I don't want anybody to feel like they're forced to do something that they don't want to do, or that if they do, you know, something else that they're not going to be okay. Like I've met people, I have family in Hollywood. I've met people who like have so much filler, so much Botox, a lot of alcohol, living off of cigarettes, and they're actually fine. You know, like I don't know if there is a perfect way of doing anything. You know, I once read this story about there was a patient who went to the doctor for a regular checkup and they're like, you need to stop smoking, because he would have a cigarette every day. And he really didn't want to because it was his way of relaxing and unwinding. He stopped smoking and his cancer came back because that was his like stress relief. Or there was a village, I think it was in Switzerland or somewhere, where they wanted to take chlorine out of the water source. They were like, we don't want chlorine in our water. They had a cholera outbreak. It's like, you know, we're living in this world where it's like there's no perfect decision. Like, you want to go back to like perfect organic food and be a caveman, like, okay, like do what you need to do. But I think we just as a society need to shift away from this pursuit of perfection. And I really do believe that perfection is just being authentic and true to yourself. Like that's the most kind of perfect life that you can lead anyways.
I think the point about perfection is so important because like a lot of, and I talk a lot about how wellness culture kind of makes us more anxious than we should be, and
Yeah.
also can disconnect us from ourselves. And so like the fundamental point of your health is to be able to listen to your body and to hopefully live as low stress of a life as possible. Like the low grade stress is going to damage your system. It's going to damage your life more than any other thing. And so coming back to this idea that like coming back to listening yourself instead of again trying to find this list of have to buy it this way, I have to do this, I have to do this, I think is just such an important message, because I do think we're often like, oh my God, I'm either going to have to do these 500 things or I just, whatever, I'm just going to let myself get cancer. And it's like so extreme and so scary. And I think to people listening to this, incremental improvement, or anytime you listen to your body and react to it accordingly, like those are all wins, and those kind of like micro things combined are what makes us feel a lot better. So yeah, I wanted to emphasize that point. And then I think, Annie, were you going to ask something?
Yeah, I want to know how you take care of yourself, because you have such a beautiful, well-balanced,
Yeah.
holistic stance on what wellness means. I'm curious to know a little bit more about your personal journey. Like, have you always been into this? And maybe what does a day in a life look like now, or some of your favorite rituals to take care of yourself and incorporate this balance?
Yeah. I mean, I would just preempt that by saying, like, I'm a sensitive person who stresses because I care a lot, you know, and that's just who I am. I'm never going to be, I'm not a chill person. Like, I'm just not. Like, I'm sensitive, I'm emotional, I'm deep feeling, like, I care so much. And it's taken me to get into my 30s to be like, you know what? I love that about myself. Like, that's just who I am. So, in terms of how I care for myself, like, my way is it's what works for me. Um, I knew I wanted to build a business. That's fun for me. That's my joy. That's my creative passion. And I've poured my life force into Atmo, and a lot of what I do around it is so that I can show up and perform as my best self. And I think a lot of people don't really see that. So I go to the gym every day for the most part. Like maybe I miss a day here or there. It took me a really long time to build up that consistency, but I go because I have a lot of energy in my body and I'm moving it a lot in my brain. So if I don't physically move my body, it's really easy for it to like feel like it's consuming me. So every day I go to the gym, I will do like a 45-minute to an hour workout, and then I will go in the sauna. If that's my thing, I'll go in the sauna and I bring my book and I read my book in the sauna. I love to read. I read almost every day. And that is like I do it because I know it helps me show up as my best self, but also because it's like my time to kind of just process things. Not the strictest routine person. Like I need some variety in my life, or I am like consistent with certain things, but I also like can't do the same thing every day or I'm gonna like lose my mind. So I like to basically every day, every morning I get up, I walk, I go get coffee. Like if I don't leave the house and go do something, I feel like my day hasn't started. And I definitely make time. I really believe in this. I actually did like a life audit at the beginning of this year and was like thinking about, where I want my life to go and what I want to spend my time on, and got kind of brutally honest with myself about like what I was doing and what I wasn't doing. I literally wrote out, these are my closest friends and the relationships that matter the most to me. I want to invest more in those this year. And that for me, because my friends live all over the world, unfortunately slash fortunately, I'm like, okay, I'm going to make space and time for more travel. And I'm going to stay up late when I see them, and I'm going to drink a lot of wine and have a great time. So I think it's just like creating a good life around the things that really matter to you. When you have a business, it's really easy for you to feel like the business is your entire life. And, Atmo is like a living and breathing thing. And yes, it is like attached to me, but it's also not me. And I think that's a really important mindset to have for people who care deeply about their work. And I will say one thing I love about Americans is like, we love what we do. We love what we do. We get such a sense of pride, and such a sense of self out of what we do. It's really important to also like not let what's happening in that space own how you feel about yourself. So I think for me, like, I love to cook. I've grown a lot in terms of like my overall wellness. I feel like in the last, basically since I got into I became a lot healthier because I make time for exercise, mental health, and good nutrition. And it's not like I had that time. I forced myself to take it in my schedule. And so I think we really do have to make time for the things that will make us feel better.
I like everything that you just said. I loved so
Yeah, it's really funny. I was living up in Napa Valley for the last year, and I will say I did do this very regularly. Like I had this little routine that I did, and it was like the greatest thing ever. I would like get up and I would go for a walk and I'd put a podcast on. I'd come back, I'd make coffee and I'd sit down and I'd work, and then I'd go out and I'd get this really amazing breakfast burrito. And I'd have like half of it in the morning and half of it in the afternoon. And then at like 6:30, I'd be like, you have to close your laptop and go to the gym. Like you have to do it. And I would go to this little gym and I would do like my hour-long workout, and then I'd go in the hot tub and I'd have my book, and then I'd go in the steam room, and then I would go get dinner at this place called Sherpa Kitchen. This place is like notorious in my friend group. Everyone's like, you need to take me to Sherpa. But they just have the best food. And I would order like this salad, salmon tikka masala. People give me shade for this, but it's truly outstanding. Salmon tikka masala, garlic basil naan, and a glass of the Honey Sauvignon Blanc. If you ever go there, this is your order. And I would sit there with my book and I would just read, and then I'd go home. And even if I had another hour or two of work to do, that like little moment just reset everything for me. And so I actually would have friends who'd be like, I want to come to Napa and I want to go to Sherpa. I want to go to Sherpa Kitchen. Like I need to live that little routine. And 10 out of 10 can recommend.
You mentioned like in your 30s, and I've really felt this way because and Annie and I talk about this a lot, but in my 20s, taking care of myself, I wasn't really coming at it from that angle. I was coming at it of like almost like self-maintenance. Like I was at a bar and I had to do all these things to keep myself running. Whereas now it's really about like, what will make me feel so good right now? Like what will make me happy and relaxed? And, sometimes those things are like objectively healthy things. Like you said, going to the gym. For me, moving my body is the exercise and calorie component has genuinely become an afterthought because it is such a thing for my mental well-being and moving energy, and like whether that's yoga that day or going on a walk or whatever. But sometimes those self-care things are like definitely not wellness protocols. Like it might be going and getting Indian food and having a glass of wine, but like that is what I really need that day. And so I just think I love that like evolving viewpoint of wellness. And again, it's something that's very personal to you and comes from listening to yourself. Do you feel like you've grown because I think, again, coming back to someone who's maybe listening to this, I didn't used to understand what it meant to listen to myself. That was a really hard concept for me to grasp. And so you've talked about that a
Mhm.
lot. What does that kind of look like for you?
Yeah. This has really been like an evolution, honestly. I think I'm a very intuitive person. I actually think women have a very strong, not to say that men don't, but I think women have a very strong sense of our intuition, and we're taught not to listen to our bodies or that inner voice. And a lot of times, like we're growing up in a world that's telling us not to trust our bodies or our inner voice, because it's about being pleasing or accommodating or considerate. So it's been a real personal growth journey to like listen to what that inner voice is telling me. And I think that I agree with you. I feel like when I was in my 20s, I mean, I was a college athlete. I approached exercise as working out. I think it was almost easier for me when I had like a community and a goal and something I was trying to accomplish. And then what shifted for me in my later 20s and into my 30s was doing it as like a practice of self love. And the ironic thing was that I actually got the best body of my life when I was doing it from that approach. I also really fell in love with traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. That's something I really love. And that is about sort of seeing the perspective of TCM is that there's this book my acupuncturist gave me where it's like the web that has no weaver. So it's all connected to spirituality as well, but in Western medicine, it's very much like a cause and effect, whereas in Eastern medicine, you're looking at like the total balance of all things and bringing things back into balance. And I think that that mentality really shaped kind of how I approach wellness today, where like I could have a spiritual experience. Like I spent my 20s in Berlin, guys. Like I could have a spiritual experience being in a club at like 4 or 5 in the morning with my girlfriends, just like letting it loose. And that could be more soul nourishing than like having spent that hour in the gym? So I think it's like finding that, like listening to that voice, like finding that feeling of balance and what feels good to you. And it took me a long time to be like, no, you don't need another cup of coffee. You're tired and dehydrated. Maybe you should like get off your phone for a sec and like drink some water. A lot of times it's really simple things, but it's just like learning to listen to what you actually need versus what you think you need.
Oh, God, that's so true. What you said too about when I stopped working out, to try and follow this regimen or control my body into a specific way, I naturally fell into a body I felt really incredible in. And I have a really similar relationship to food. I used to be either I would overeat or like snack incessantly to avoid discomfort, to like constantly
Mhm.
escaping that root feeling, as you mentioned. And then it swung. I struggled with some health stuff, autoimmune, PCOS, eczema, psoriasis, and I thought food would save me. And yes, of course, taking care of ourselves is like one of the most critical ingredients to your health and longevity. But I was so afraid of myself that it was like
Mhm.
this perfect plan, this optimization protocol. And if I did not follow that specifically, I would be sick or I would fail. And I
Mhm.
was so dissociated. Like, I would honestly argue that trying to heal my body through food and optimization ruined my health. Like, it took
Yeah, I believe it.
it away. And it's unbelievable what happens when it's just like, let it go. Like, be free. Trust yourself. Listen to yourself. What do you actually need? Like, is it a nap? Is it a piece of chocolate? Is it like laughing? I actually had an epiphany the other day. Marissa and I are working on our program. And I was like, oh my God, one of the best ways to rid yourself of anxiety is like laughing hysterically. And I'm like, there are so many healing rituals that
Yeah.
have nothing to do with wellness and perfection. I
Absolutely.
honestly think that wellness culture can take us further from ourselves. So I don't know, that point, like, really resonates with me.
100%, 100%. One of my best friends, she has a restaurant in London. Everyone should go. It's amazing.
What is it?
Her restaurant is called Elsa, and it is an Alsatian wine bar and bistro. And she was actually a food journalist. And I feel like when I moved to Europe, she and my close friends there taught me so much about just like living life, you know? And I really learned from them like what real friendship is, but also just like how to live better. And she was a food journalist before, and her hashtag was fat for life. She was like, fat for life. Like, we need real sugar and real fat. And she taught me so much about that, where it's like, listen, if you want to have a cookie, this is her perspective on life. And I love this. If you want to have a cookie, go and have the best, most decadent, delicious, amazing cookie of your life. Enjoy it, live it. And I swear if you do that, once it's over, you're like, okay, I'm good now,
Yeah.
you know? And like, I think that mentality is the right way to live. Like, if you want to go dance and like party and let loose, go do it. Have the best, most amazing time. Like, give yourself that full experience. And then when you're ready for something else, do something else. Like, I don't think that self denial really leads us to the right place. I think that if you have, and I feel like I can really speak to this because I struggled with my body. I had deep cystic acne. I was overweight at certain points. It came from, there was a root cause. You've got to get to the root cause. What was I looking for in food? Comfort.
Yep.
What was my acne telling me? My body was out of balance. Like I was stressed. I wasn't like at home within myself. Once I fixed that, I pretty much eat whatever I want these days. When I gave myself that freedom, like I'm like, oh, I want healthier, more nourishing, nutritious foods. Oh, I move my body because I love to move my body. If you don't like going to the gym, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should just find something that you love to do. I love Pilates. I could be glued to a reformer every single day of my life and be in heaven. My sister hates Pilates. It's just not her thing, but she loves yoga. She loves dance. Like the reformer is limiting for her. She needs more space and more expression. Whereas for me, I'm like, it makes me feel so solid, you know? So I think finding things that you love to do is the best. It's the best medicine for any of us.
And they always say like what is it? The routine that you do is the one that works. Like
Yeah, totally.
whatever you're excited to do that you're actually going to do that you actually want to do to take care of yourself, that is like the thing that will work for you. And so I think that again with social media, it's like you always see in the comments someone looking really good or really happy and it's like drop the skincare routine, the workout routine, the whatever, and it's like it's now that I think about it, it's so counterintuitive because to your point, I just really like to do yoga, walk outside, and do Pilates occasionally, and so, like, that's all I do. I never will you'll never catch me at a Soul Cycle. I will not be doing any hit or anything intense. I don't really like the gym, and I feel so much better than when I was trying to do those things. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
whatever feels good is the answer, and, like, trying to copy what works for someone else is, like, not the point. So I love
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I think it's amazing to get inspired by other people. Like, I feel like when Pilates became like the thing, that probably is what inspired me to go. But I found like a true and authentic love for that. Also, like, I have been trying to have more of like a plan in the gym because I'm like, oh, now that I feel good and healthy pretty much every day, I'm like, ooh, what can I do if I had a like consistency and more of a plan on some of those goals that I want to hit? So I think it's really a balance. It's like, with my job, for example, like I've like planned the next 5 years of our lives. I can tell you right now, things will not go according to plan. So I think it's like having the balance between like kind of knowing where you want to go, having intention, challenging yourself, being around people that challenge you. I love being challenged. And then also giving yourself just like the freedom and grace to like be a human and enjoy being a human and the messiness that comes with being fully alive.
So good. Margaret, I'm obsessed with you. I like everything you're saying is just resonating
Oh, God.
so much. I love
Oh,
it. Your perspective in the noisy, saturated, high pressure, optimized world of wellness, this is the message that needs to be shared.
Oh
So
my god,
really
that's so nice. I feel like all I can say is just like, guys, I've really made a lot of mistakes. Like, here's where I'm at now, and I'm sure there'll come a time when I look back on this and I'm like, "Wow, here's where I am now," But I'm so happy if it resonates and if it can be helpful because, I love wellness, I love feeling good, but I really don't like what that culture has become, and we just need to, like, let ourselves also live life. So, live life can be the
you're not
the takeaway from this.
yes, life and like let it flow. Like your point on making mistakes. We've all made mistakes, but I think so many times we make a mistake or something kind of goes astray and then we just want to fix it. We want to like
Mhm.
punch onto it. We want to make sure like everything looks perfect in order rather than kind of this feeling of catching and releasing. Like, oh, this feels
Yeah.
good. Okay, where am I going to go next? Let life move through you.
I think also, like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be excellent. Like, I push myself hard because I wanna be excellent. I want to be the best that I can be. But it's not because I'm trying to force myself into that. It's because I authentically want that. I want to be the best CEO. I want to create the best products. I want to create the best customer experience. Like that is my great love. It's what I feel like I'm called to do. And I want to share that with a bigger and bigger audience. Um, and I want to, I want to do the work to give it my all. That said, like I don't have it every day. And I'm okay with that. Some days you're like, I don't have it today. And it's like, look, you're better off like going for a walk and getting a margarita than like sitting at your desk trying to like force yourself to do something.
That was both Marissa and I yesterday. Both of us are always like perfectly at our desks, everything organized. Yesterday, I took the first call probably in my life from my bed, like underneath my
Love
blanket
it.
with my stuffed pig. And I get
Love
on,
it.
I'm like, whatever. Like,
Yeah. Love
as
it.
stupid
Love
as it
it.
can be. And then Marissa also gets on and she's like, I gotta be on camera off. I'm in bed. And I'm like, I'm taking this call from bed.
It was literally the first time, like Annie said, we never do that, but both of us we were just not feeling the best yesterday. And it's actually, I think one of the things that's the most special about starting your own company or creating your own company is you can kind of create the culture and the world that you want to live in. And to your
Yeah.
point, like both Annie and I want to be excellent. And I don't think that, again, I don't think that self-care and balance and all those things need to be polarized with wanting success and wanting to do amazing work in the world. Like I actually think they go together because when you really love
I
yourself, you want
agree.
to show up in the things you do, but you can also do those things with grace. Like I know that Annie and I are going to work really, really hard. So if one of us is having an off day, like allowing ourselves to have an off day, allowing ourselves to rest is going to create long-term kind of the world we want to live in and the work that we want to create. And unfortunately, that was not my experience in the corporate world, but it's beautiful
Hmm.
that, especially, in startups and being a founder, there is a lot less balance. There's a lot more pressure in a lot of ways in those small moments to be able to create the world you want to live in. That's a really special part of it, too.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I think also at the end of the day, like what I've realized I care the most about is like character values, integrity, this kind of stuff. Like, you know, I think especially when it comes to work and like choosing people to work with and creating an environment, like if you choose to work with people and surround yourself with people that have character, have values, have integrity, the foundation's there. You know, you can't make somebody into a hardworking person. That's got to come from them internally. But if
Yep.
they're a hardworking person that like maybe doesn't have every skill set baked out, like they'll get there, you know?
So true. So true. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. We really covered everything, and I feel so inspired and
Oh,
energized by this. So thank you for coming on. This has been
oh my God. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat more with you guys and feel like everyone's going to go forward and be trimming their candle wicks and opening their windows. I hope.
I know. I love we started with like tactical candle advice and really informative, by the way. And we ended with such beautiful life lessons from you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, our overall message was like, relax, it's going to be fine.
but it's on brand. That's your whole point is balance and yeah, it's amazing. Where can everybody find you? And we'll obviously link it all in the show notes as well.
Yeah, so I actually deactivated my Instagram. It was private anyways, so that's not a very good place, but you can mostly just find me on Atmo stuff. I do have a personal TikTok that I never add things to, but you can follow me on TikTok if you want. Atmo, you can follow on TikTok, Instagram, and of course, if anyone has any questions, just drop us a note. We have a contact form on our website. Which we're also relaunching soon, so it's going to be even better. But yeah, those are definitely the best places to get in touch with us. But yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for coming on, Margaret. This has been amazing.
Yay. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing. I think it's really helpful for all of us. Like, I wish when I was coming up in my career that there were things that I could have referenced like this to just help me kind of find my own way. So I love what you guys are doing. And thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk soon.
Soon. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment to pause and notice where it's sitting within you.
Living in alignment is not about fixing yourself or becoming someone new. It's about listening, trusting, and slowly coming home to who you already are.
Thank you for spending this time with us and for being part of this community.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might resonate with it too. See you next time.